All right. It's fun to message with y'all too right now. So feel free to message me at any point throughout. All right, it's 5 o'clock. Let's get started. So, hi everyone. My name is Jordan Pedraza. I lead our community programs here at Remind, based out of San Francisco. And tonight we're doing the first of a couple of Hangouts on Air, or webinars, with Remind Connected Educators. And we're going to be talking about some updates with the program, and then more importantly, walking through all of our resources and best practices and tips for how you can share Remind and train others on it this year. And then we're also going to hear from a few other Remind Connected educators here on our panel tonight to hear their best practices and tips and examples of how they share Remind with others. So with that, I'm going to share my screen here. Hopefully you all can see it in just a second. Okay, hopefully you see my screen now. And for those in the actual Hangout, if you just click on my face in the Hangout, you should be able to see my full screen. All right, so a quick reminder for those that aren't in the class yet, but I think most of you are. Here's our code to join the class, so it's at July 27 PD. So you can join to participate. Basically what we're going to do is kind of run through our content here, and then we'll use this class to do Q&A. So if you have any questions or comments throughout our session, feel free to message them to me, and I will reshare them back in our session. And then the other thing I wanted to note is that all of these sessions, including this one tonight, is going to be recorded, and I will share the recording after our session today, and as well as this presentation deck. So there's me again. Hello. So I lead community at Remind, and most of you have my contact information, I think, but my email address is there below, or just message me on Remind, however you prefer to get hold of me. So my goal here is to essentially support all of you, support our teachers, staff, administrators, students, and parents, everyone that's using Remind, making sure they have the resources they need, the support they need, that their feedback is heard, and that we're just bringing people together to make the most out of this tool and to continue to celebrate and uplift you. So our agenda tonight is pretty straightforward. I wanted to give a brief kind of recap on the Remind Connected Educator Program, especially for folks that are new to it, and also some updates. And then we'll talk about best practices and stories with sharing Remind with others. And then I'll walk through the latest resources we have. So if you ever want to do any professional development sessions, trainings, workshops, or anything else, I'm going to show you what we have. And then we'll wrap with Q&A. All right, so first let's talk about Remind Connected Educators and Administrators. So to take a step back and look at how we think about community at Remind, really our goal here is to connect everyone and delight you and support you. That really matters to us here. One of our mottos is teacher obsession, and what that means is we really just want to try to empathize with what you need and what you care about so we can make your lives easier. And then ultimately our vision is to improve education by supporting you all. So whether you're a teacher, administrator, student, or parent, our goal is to bring all of these communities together so that we can support you better, since there's a lot of you, and then also share whatever is helpful with you, whether that's resources, new features, getting feedback, collaborating on different things. And then ultimately, our hope is that by working together, we can make a bigger impact together. We can spread the word more effectively together. And so there's a lot of ways we connect with our communities. We have a few programs which you already know about and are in: Remind Connected Educators, Remind Connected Administrators. So that's the program for principals and district staff and other kind of coordinators. And then we also have a few advisory boards. So folks that have already been connected educators or administrators, each year we invite a subset of people to join our advisory boards to give us more in-depth feedback. And then lastly, we also use a bunch of other kind of channels to communicate with everyone. So we're at a lot of events and conferences and meetups. We're all over social media. And of course, we have a lot of our Remind classes. And then for those that kind of are still wondering, well, okay, I'm an RCE or an RCA, but what does that really mean? So that's a great question. And essentially, you are educators, staff, professionals who are passionate about using Remind. So essentially, you can think of yourselves as Remind's ambassadors and an extension of our team, really. And so ultimately helping to spread the word about Remind through a lot of different ways. So trainings, events, meetups, social media, blog posts, and then, of course, always giving us feedback on how we can do better. So where are RCEs and RCAs? There's thousands of you all over the world. I took a screenshot of our latest Google map, and we still need to keep updating it because there's more and more people joining. But just to give you a snapshot, at least, of kind of where everyone is. So it's kind of mapped to where people report their school location is. And we've used different colors for who's a Remind Connected educator versus an administrator. So here's a link to this map if you ever want to check it out. If you're not on it yourself, stay tuned because we're going to continue to update this map. So, but the cool thing about it is that it just helps everyone know who's who, finds people to collaborate with or connect with, either in their own backyard or anywhere else. And then diving deeper into who RCEs and RCAs are. So all of you are amazing. And what I really love about this program is there's such a wide spectrum in terms of backgrounds and interests and areas of expertise and areas of passion that we see in our community with these programs. So folks are classroom teachers, school librarians, instructional coaches, technology staff, parent coordinators, guidance counselors. I mean, it's really a really wonderful mix of everyone. And that's the beauty of it all, is that when we can all come together and learn from each other and think of new ways we can really change the way communication is done at our school, I think it's a very powerful and important thing. And one other thing kind of related to this idea of collaborating and coming together. So you're going to see this phrase come out over the next couple of weeks during back to school, and it's called Succeed Together. And we've had some discussions with you all actually on the Facebook group around what message can we say with this back to school. Last year, some of you might remember Teach Small, and that was about celebrating all the small things that you all do that make a big difference. So for this year, we're recognizing that it takes a village. It takes everyone. You know, teachers, staff, school leaders, parents, students, coaches, you know, advisors, everyone in a school community to help every student succeed. And then we think that more effective communication across this whole school is really effective and important. And so we're going to be supporting you all with helping to get the rest of your school connected and on board. So you can help everyone be informed and connected with Remind. So we're going to have a few resources around school-wide engagement best practices and presentation materials and case studies and tons of wonderful stories around how you all are connecting all the different components and stakeholders in your school. And another fun thing I just wanted to highlight real quickly here is related to this Succeed Together theme, we also are going to have a little fun Succeed Together challenge. And so we know one of the top things that you all love is swag, shirts and stickers and pens and buttons. And so we want to celebrate that and kind of reward everyone by getting their schools connected. You're going to get some goodies with that. So first one I wanted to call out is for those that are able to get their administrator on board or school leader on board this year, we're going to give you all 300 character limit for everyone at your school. And then secondly, depending on the region you're in and how connected you are in terms of the proportion of teachers that are using Remind at your school, the number of messages that have been sent, we're going to also give out grants for school supplies or conferences. And then, of course, lots of fun swag. And so we've been working closely with our design team on making some really fun, exciting new materials for you all to use at school. So notebooks, hoodies, buttons, stickers, pencils, and posters as well. And the cool thing about the posters is we're working on our school-wide products and features, and we're going to make it easy for you to help people join the school-wide class. It's a new feature that's coming out. So lots of fun goodies on the way for this back to school. All right, so now shifting gears, talking about how do you share Remind school-wide? How do you help others understand what it is and what it's about and how it can be used? So I quickly wanted to run through some best practices and stories we've already seen in our community, and then I'm going to hand the floor over to our panelists so they can share their experiences and tips. All right, so one of the best ways you can kind of spread the movement is actually finding other Remind fans or users at your school. Chances are you're not alone, and there's others that are using it and they're passionate about it. And so we found it's helpful for others to connect with each other and bounce ideas off each other, collaborate, maybe on a training or putting some resources together, or just figuring out how can you best kind of divide and conquer and spread the word at your school. And so one of the easiest ways to do that, especially if you want to connect with other like-minded folks from around the country and world, I've linked off to our RCE and RCA Facebook group forums. So if you're not in those, I highly recommend joining. There's great questions in there, great examples and stories, and we also use the space as a way to communicate changes and updates and getting feedback. And again, I'm going to be sending out this presentation in case you missed those links. And then next, after kind of connecting with your broader network, your kind of PLN, at your own school and in your own backyard, there's a lot of other ways to find Remind fans as you're introducing it. So some of the things we've heard a lot is introducing it at your next staff meeting or even electronically if you have a list of all the staff at your school, or even district if you're at the district level. So chances are when you're sharing about a tool, those who already use it and know it, oh, actually, I already use it. I've seen that happen tons of times when I'm visiting schools. And related to that, if you're presenting, oftentimes starting out by asking who's already heard of or used Remind. That's another easy way to identify others who are involved with it already. We've seen lots of cool cases where people use the materials we provide to them, whether it's a shirt or swag, to spread awareness. Sometimes people will wear their shirt when they're presenting on a PD day. Sometimes they'll wear it to the gym. Sometimes they'll lay out some of their swag they have near their classroom. So it's really up to you how creative you want to get with it. And I will include information on how to request swag for events for the future. Hosting a coffee EDU is another great option, especially if you want a more intimate small group setting. A coffee EDU, for those unfamiliar, basically it's a 1-hour meetup over coffee. That's it. So you choose a time and place, and everyone gets coffee, and you can talk about whatever you want. No agenda, nothing like that. And if you want to host a coffee EDU on Remind, let me know, and we can reimburse you for up to $30. So thanks to Alice Keeler for being the founder of that wonderful program. Some other ideas I've seen from the community: posting flyers, maybe in a staff lounge or on campus, and that's actually one of the posters that we're going to be sending out hopefully in the next couple of weeks to folks. But we've seen people make their own too. You're definitely welcome to do that. And then, of course, always ask us if there's other ideas you have on how we can help you identify other Remind users or with sharing the word. Definitely get in touch. And I just wanted to share this one example here on the right-hand side. I know the image is a little blurry, but basically it's a Remind Connected educator, Susie. And at the beginning of the year, she just emailed her colleagues and introduced Remind, and in her own personal way, which I'm going to be talking about in a second, of why that's important and helpful. But she just does a quick kind of introduction to what it is and her experience with it, and then offers to answer any questions that come up. So that's just one easy way to share the word, and then also find out if there's others that are using it, and maybe you can exchange ideas. So finding your tribe. So after that, it's sharing your story, and this can go hand in hand with your finding other like-minded peers. And so what we've seen is really effective is kind of identifying the audience first, or maybe your school. So starting with, what does the school need, or what does this educator need, or what does this colleague need, and then tailoring what you know about your mind and what you have to share to those needs. And so, for example, we've seen people who know that sometimes people don't feel heard in their community. Maybe there's a lot of tools being used to communicate, but it's kind of easy to get drowned out. And so actually yesterday I had a teacher visiting me who said, the way I communicate about Remind is to say, do you really want to be heard? This helps you cut through all the noise. But that worked in her school environment. Maybe in another environment, it can be challenging to include and communicate with students or families that speak multiple languages. So we've seen teachers talk about the translate feature and helping them do that. And then from a principal's perspective, we've seen them talk about how it's really important for them to share and build their school community and story. And how can you do that but in a personal way, but it's still safe, so you're not sharing each other's personal contact information and numbers and all that. So yeah, it's just really about listening to what the audience is saying, what your school needs, and mapping it back to that. And then where your story comes in, I think what's really helpful is sharing specific examples of how you've used Remind. What kind of messages do you send? What kind of impact have you seen? What testimonials or what feedback have you gotten from students or parents since you've implemented this tool? Sometimes that's even the most important and powerful thing to share, is what has been the reception been like once you've used it. And then it's always helpful to ask questions, and this kind of helps you identify what those needs are again. So what do you teach? What are the current ways you communicate? What are the tools you use? What challenges do you face with that? What do you wish you could do better or change? And then oftentimes we've seen people that appreciate kind of third-party evaluation or research of Remind and its effectiveness. And we totally understand and respect that. So we're starting to compile more research and case studies to kind of document evidence on how the power of texting in school settings and for communication can be really effective. So I've linked here to a couple of case studies we have, and again, I'm sharing this presentation out. And this is also on our resources page at remind.com/resources. But we have a case study on boosting parent and student engagement. We have one on improving attendance. And then we're going to start to build more case studies for specific subjects and disciplines and activities. So we have new ones for Remind for coaches, so anyone that's leading a sports team. And then for bands. And we're going to add tons more. We're going to add one on PTAs and PTOs. We're going to add one for higher education, so for those of you that work with colleges or community colleges. And then there's going to be tons more coming down the pipe. And then lastly, on social media, we always love to hear your stories. It's helpful to kind of remind us, pun intended, of why we do what we do here, and then more importantly, for others to understand how it works and what the impact can be. So I just added a little tweak here, and there's so many to choose from, but this is one example. What's helpful here is when people share, how they feel or what their experience is like with it, and then also including a screenshot of the message. And of course, blocking out any sensitive information, but more importantly, just again showing what does it all look like. How does it work? I think that's what is the biggest thing to make sure people understand. So that's about sharing your story, and then sharing it with others. So there's lots of ways to do that, and again, I mentioned that you can join our forums and Facebook groups to get ideas on how you can do a training or share it with others. Here's a picture of Maria Lunsford, and she was sharing it at a PD day, and she used her Remind shirt. So yeah, it can be very helpful to take advantage of in-service days that you have. Sign up for some time or request it. And then use the templates that we can provide to you, or feel free to create your own, whatever you prefer. Yeah, give everyone a chance to learn it all together at the same time. And I think that's also important to not take for granted. And I hear that a lot when I'm visiting schools. It's getting that gift of time together to all, okay, let's all visit this website together, or let's all install the app together, and let's all play around with it together. So giving ourselves that space and time to play around with it in a non-intimidating, non-overwhelming way. And then also sharing with your school leader if you're in a position to do that. So we've seen this happen a lot more recently. Typically, you'll set up a conversation with them one-on-one or maybe in a small group and share what you've done, what you've achieved, what you've seen or experienced. And we have special materials for that. We have a presentation kind of more tailored to the school leader audience in a one-pager. But I think the most powerful thing we've heard, and that seems to go pretty well, is how you think it can help benefit the whole school or your team. So this is from Cindy Price here. When she was sharing Remind with her principal, she said, well, I told them about the chat feature and how this would be great instead of email, because during the day we don't have time to see email. So that's just one way to frame it, because we know real-time kind of urgent situations come up, and for email sometimes that's just not as instant. But usually we have our phones on our pockets or on our desks, or we're looking at it much more frequently. So, but then again, that's just one example. In your school it may be something else that you think would help. So it's important to share what you think and offer solutions for that. Another popular thing we've seen people do is, and this can work with anyone really, invite them to one of your classes, or even creating a demo class together and just playing around with it. Because I think it's important to show them really how it works, what it will look like on the receiving end, so they get a better picture of that. All right, so those are just a few stories I wanted to share. I'm going to close out here and hand it over to our wonderful panelists. So let's start with Heidi on the left here. Please say where you're from and what you do, and any examples or tips or just stories of how you've shared Remind with others.
Hi, I'm Heidi Samuelson. I teach 4th grade in Tennessee, and I've actually started using Remind as a parent. So I was a parent volunteer for the high school band that my son was in, and it was my job for communications. And I was able to do a lot of great things with the band, so I brought it back over into my classroom, and then from there have just been using it more and more and more. And so I do a lot of PD for the district that I'm with, and I do a lot of sharing out on Twitter, so it's just kind of grown from there. And I think almost all of my teachers at my school are using Remind now. So sorry, I have a pup that's playing around.
No worries at all. Awesome. Thanks so much, Heidi. I love how you shared. There's lots of different ways to kind of get the word out and interact. So that's awesome. All right, Janetta, do you want to go next?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Janetta Glass. I teach in Memphis, Tennessee, high school math. One of the neat ways I used it last year was for a field trip. We took seniors to Magic Springs, and we had 2 buses, so I formed 2 groups, one per bus, to communicate. We were heading back to the bus. It's time to go. What they need to do when we get off the bus and things like that. And we use it primarily with the senior sponsor to communicate with the senior class as well as their parents.
Great. And when you're sharing Remind with someone who hasn't heard of it yet or used it before, how do you typically do that?
We try to get our guidance counselor on, and something keeps going on with her phone. She's in, she's out. She's in, she's out again. So we try to include her in the senior group as well, because she's the senior counselor, because there are things she wants to tell, because we got tired of her texting us, hey, tell the kids this, tell them this. How about you join? And she had it as a parent. So we had to create her a teacher account so that she could become one of the owners of our groups.
Right. Okay. Yeah, like I said before, sometimes just having someone join the class first can be a nice first introduction or step. Lydia, you're next.
All right. Hello, I'm Lydia Krupp. I'm in Dallas, Texas. I work in Richardson, which is just a little bit north of where I'm at right now. I was a secondary English teacher language arts teacher for 11 years, and that's when I actually started using Remind. So back in the early days when it wasn't nearly as cool. It was cool, but not so much as all the cool features it has now. One of the things that really made a difference, especially as more and more teachers picked up using it, is I told my kids to get the app as opposed to always getting the text messages. Now, some of them, they didn't want to get the app. They did text message or email. It was fine. But once you have the app, you can put all your classes in there, and that way they weren't getting all these text messages. Instead, they were just getting the notifications through the app. And as a parent and a teacher, that's what I do. So my kid's elementary school has a Remind account, and I get those messages through my account on Remind, and that made that a lot easier. Attachments was huge for me because I taught towards the last few years in the classroom, I taught AP language, and since our major focus was on argument, especially during presidential election years, articles would come out or or something would happen on the news, or I would find something in the evening and I would think, that would be really cool to talk about in class or share with the kids. And I would send it out. Then I would say, hey guys, I just came across this. Check it out. We can talk about it in class next time. And I didn't have to wait till I saw them in class to give it to them. And so that was a really big deal for me. Or if I wanted to, if something needed updating or changing, it just made it easier, especially with those kids because they are very, very much on the ball with what's going on. And so they like to be kept up to date. Another thing that worked for me was being able to embed the Remind feed on my class website because even though most of the kids have phones, not all of the kids have phones, and some of them can't access email as often, I guess, but they could somehow or another check the website and they would see the feed on there, and that helped a lot too. I know it's a lot. Finally, one thing we discovered this past year at TCEA, my friend was doing, Aurora actually, Jordan, you met her, she was doing a presentation on Remind, and we created a class for that presentation to send stuff out and to kind of show people how to join and how it works, and it turned out that chat feature made a great back channel because while she presented, people could message questions, or I was actually sending out quiz questions, like Aurora would share something and I would say, first one to respond with the answer to blah, 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 and so we were actually handing out swag while the presentation was going on because I would send a question out, someone would reply, and then I would quietly move throughout the audience and hand stuff out. So they were interacting with her presentation like through it as like a back channel with that Remind account. And I was like, that's actually really great. And if an administrator does that for a staff, I mean, that's great during staff meetings because we all know that person was there any questions, they raise their hand, and we all know we're there for another hour. But that's a great thing to do for a back channel, but then also just throughout the year. If a teacher wants to shoot the principal a question, but that doesn't have time necessarily for the email, but they have their phone, they type the question, they send it, and then it's maybe something the administrator can address out to everyone. So those are my top things. So, oh, and I said I was in the classroom. I'm now an instructional technology specialist. So I actually am in an office now, and I have multiple campuses that I do educational tech with.
Awesome. Thanks, Lydia. I loved, so many loved things that I loved there. So the back channel example, we've heard about that a ton, especially in PD sessions like this. That's kind of what we're doing right now with our Remind class. So yeah, that's another great way to share it in action and use it, almost embed it into whatever you're doing. So it doesn't even feel like, okay, here's this new tool, we gotta learn it and do PD on it, but more, okay, hey, we have this meeting and let's just use this thing as a back channel. So I love that. And it reminds me of another case. I think this was a principal. He does a weekly Ask Me Anything. And so a parent, student, staff, anyone can send in a quick message to him to ask a question. And then he can respond to them individually, or if it's a question that it's for the whole broader community, but someone doesn't feel comfortable bringing up in public, then that's a nice private channel to submit the question, and then it can be addressed. So I love those. Thank you. Megan, want to go next?
Yes. Hello. My name is Megan, and I'm from East Tennessee. And I am a reading interventionist in a K-8 elementary school. And prior to that, I was a 5th and 6th grade ELA teacher for many years. And I started using Remind as a cheer coach. And that's how I communicated with all my parents. And then I slowly moved it into Beta Club and in my classroom. But now I use it to communicate with my parents to let them know when their RTI paperwork is coming home. It comes home every 4.5 weeks. and doesn't always make it, but I can let them know to be on the lookout for it. I also use it to communicate. I'm in a campus that was made in the 1920s, so we have 6 different buildings for an elementary school, and I use it to communicate with the teachers in different buildings to let them know whether RTI is happening that day, if there's a change in one of the RTI students' schedules. We also use it with our actual whole school. Our principal has one list for the entire school. We use it to remind them about open house or report cards or things like that. And the way I have shared it is through blogging, and I've also shared it at many ed camps. And I also use the ed camp style when I lead PD on Remind. We just sit in a circle because we do have a lot of people who have used it in some of the PD sessions. They're just learning how to use it better, and we just kind of help each other and have that circle discussion.
Nice. I so much appreciate the school-wide piece, because even for me, as I reflect on my experiences, it was just so hard to know about all the school-wide stuff happening. And that's just a powerful way for people to know not only the information they need, but also, again, what Remind is and what it's for, and how it can help. So that's awesome. Oh, and then I love that you brought up other in-person things too, like ed camps and whatnot. So those are awesome, great spaces to share with others. So last but not least, Trifina, am I pronouncing that right?
Yes, you are.
Great. You want to go?
All right, sure. My name is Trifina, and I'm from Columbia, South Carolina. I teach 6th grade science, and I've been using Remind for about 2 years, and I have found it extremely helpful. I teach 6th graders, and we are in a middle school, so it's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and it's about that time when parents don't really want to let go, but they do want to let go, and students are becoming a whole lot more independent, and so homework or things don't come home as often, and so the Remind is a good tool to get parents involved and make them feel okay, well, that they're still part of class. One way that I have started to use it, and it was out of suggestion from a parent, was that he said that he enjoyed using or enjoy getting the text messages, but however, he wanted to know, okay, well, can I tell him when a test is coming up? And so what I started doing was that once a week, maybe on Fridays, I would give a preview as to what is coming up for the next week. And parents enjoyed that. And then for students, it was also helpful because they wanted to sign up so that they could get actual reminders of assignments that they wanted to do or things that they would like to do. They know that they're supposed to do, but keep forgetting for agenda purposes. And as for training others and getting others to use Remind, one way I've been using it is that at our school we have to, and I'm sure at most schools as well, is that we have to give or document every time we contacted someone and contacted a parent, or for those parent-teacher conferences when somebody didn't get an email but they really did, so I've been using it as a way, and I've been telling other parents and teachers how to use it, as the fact that you can print out your entire information, every text message that you've sent, individual conversation between parents that you can bring to a parent-teacher conference, or that you can use as data when you have to do your data notebooks or whatever it is, whatever else that you may have to do, but that it will be a good way to showcase that you have documented actual communication between yourself and parents. And so that's, I think that's one of the tips of a way to sell Remind. And for 6th graders, how I've gotten parents to sign up for Remind is by sending out those attachments as well, pictures of field trips. And so you send those pictures of field trips, or telling parents, okay, well, I will update you when we are halfway there, or when we're leaving, or when we're coming back. And I've gotten a lot of parents to sign up because of that, because they want that instant feedback. And so those parents that you find will but really respond to an email or phone call will quickly respond to a text, because it's something that's very quick and short. And so besides what everyone else has already included.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that. And I totally agree. I think some of the most underappreciated features like the export transcripts feature is actually one of the more popular ones, I would say. I've definitely heard of similar stories like yours where it's helpful for conferences or end-of-year evaluations or maybe applying for other grants or other resources. So yes, but I actually didn't think of it as a selling tool, actually. So yeah, I love that. And I think all of these stories just show, again, it's about listening to what your community is saying and what you think would really resonate with them. So thank you so much to our lovely panel for sharing your stories and how you use it, and then also how you share it with others. It's kind of interesting to hear how it goes hand in hand. Like using it is sharing it, and sharing it is using it. So I'm going to switch my screen back again and walk through some other remaining resources to help you share and also educate yourself on what's available. And I've already seen some great questions coming through the Remind class. Definitely keep them coming. Just reply back to me, message, and we'll cover them in the next session here. So let me just share my screen again. Great. And also, if you have other suggestions on how you share Remind with others or how you use it, definitely feel free to send those thoughts in too. All right, so other awesome resources for you. So I wanted to share how you access a lot of these awesome resources. So if you log into your Remind accounts on the web at remind.com, and if you scroll to the bottom left-hand corner for your profile button, and then if you're a Remind Connected Educator, you should see a button that says Connected Educator, little apple on it. So if you click on that, that will take you to our special site just for Remind Connected Educators and administrators. Now you can only access this on the web, I believe. So this is what this page looks like, and I included a quick link to that in the bottom there. So essentially what we do is, again, describe what the program is about and how to get in contact with us, and then your different resources. So we link off to the communities you can join, so those Facebook groups I mentioned earlier. We link off to a lot of the materials that we provide, and then we also give you channels to spread the word with others. So there's tons here. I'm going to give you a peek at what some of these things are, but it's all listed in one place. Oh, and then the other thing I wanted to mention is we also have the map I mentioned earlier in our directory, and that's only accessible to RCEs and RCAs. And we're always updating that, so if you don't see yourself yet, you will eventually. So resources for days. So let's say I clicked on the RCE materials folder. So this is where you can find a lot of great stuff that isn't necessarily ready on our full-blown resources page. We're actually revamping a lot of our pages right now, and so we'll make sure the resources that do work well are available for everyone, of course. We don't want to hide that from anyone, but we do want to always make sure we're empowering you all with whatever we think might help or whatever you tell us would help. And then get feedback and then kind of share more broadly. So one folder we have is for badges and email signatures. So we hear from a lot of you that badges are awesome, and we agree. So we created a folder just for that, so you can add a badge on your website, your blog, your email signature, and including email signatures, actually, we have some templates in there that you can use where you can just kind of add in the badge or a special kind of format into your email and use that to let others know about Remind. So next we also have a back-to-school school-wide kit. So we've also heard from many of you that it'd be nice to just have a kit for everything you might need to help make the case school-wide or educate people on what's possible. So in here, there's tons of handouts that you can either share digitally or print if you like. We've also included some little one-pagers on new updates and things we've added to Remind, such as activities. And then also little case studies and testimonials from different use cases. So for example, the new music and band case study that I mentioned earlier is in there, or the coaches case study. And we're going to continue to add a lot more stories in there. Survey templates, and I just posted this in the RCE group earlier today, but one of our great team members, Sarah, who looks after our Mid-Atlantic community. She created these templates in case you want to get statistics or feedback at the beginning or end of the school year. So you can use this with parents, with students, with your staff, whoever. And we have both a print-friendly version, so people can kind of write it on or write it in, or we have a digital version powered by Google Forms, and so you can collect your information that way. So we found it's helpful for people to be able to, find out what the needs are, kind of do a needs assessment at the beginning of the year, and then at the end compare and see if Remind was helpful, or if there's any other things that they could do to help others out. Another thing I wanted to call out was more handouts and flyers we have. So we have some other ones. This one example here is on our Remind translation feature. And then this is a popular one. So we have a whole, oh, bless you. We have an entire kind of kit for doing PDs or in-service days. So this is a really nice set of resources. So we have presentation templates. We also have worksheets, so people can kind of fill in, do some trivia questions, or kind of think more thoughtfully about, what challenges they have with communication and what solutions there might be. We also have a certificate that's actually signed by our CEO and founder, Brett Kopf. And actually, I'm going to send out this certificate as well after this session today. And we also have a special badge for people that present on these resources. And then guided notes. So for you, if you're delivering these materials yourself, we kind of have suggestions or things you can point out or do along the way. So I just wanted to link off to this again. This should take you to our folder. And again, I'm going to share this presentation out, but there's the broader folder I was just talking about there that has all those presentations and certificates and badges and handouts and worksheets. So there's the link right there real quickly. And again, I'm going to be sharing this out. All right, and the last thing I wanted to emphasize here is that we're here for you. We have an awesome team. A lot of us have been in the classroom or have worked at schools, and we just really want to make sure you feel supported and you have what you need. So if you ever have a question, if you need some materials, you want to collaborate with us on something, you're going to be visiting our office, or you want to get in touch, just definitely look us up. Just to introduce some more of the team, so hopefully you all know who I am now, Jordan Pedraza, but some of my other awesome team members, we have Taylor Chapman, who's based in New York, and he's been a former teacher there and also in North Carolina. We have Connor Pearson, who sits in the San Francisco office with me. He looks after California. We have Sarah Doherty. She used to teach in Louisiana, but is originally from the New Jersey, Pennsylvania area, so she's looking after the Mid-Atlantic area, and she's based in Philly right now. We have Jackson Klein. He's based in Chicago, and he actually used to be an administrator at a school. And then Laura Ludemy is based in Austin, Texas, and she looks after the South. So we're all here. You might have already heard from us before, and we look forward to collaborating with you and supporting you for the upcoming year. All right, so now let's go into some questions, and I've already seen some come through the Remind class, so feel free to keep them coming. The first question I saw was about the widget. So what the widget does is it lets you automatically pull in a Remind feed that you have, so all the messages that you're sending out for a class, it automatically pulls it in to a website or a blog or a page. So actually, I'm going to share my screen again really quickly and just show you an example, and then show you where you can find it. All right, so here we go. So I'm going to pull up one school that I know off the top of my head that uses the widget here. This is Leal Elementary School in Southern California. And so here's their school webpage, and so they have lots of lovely information here. But what they've done at the top is embed their Remind class feed for their parents. So it archives and pushes out all the messages that they send out. They don't have to take the time to send their message on Remind and then update this page and update other pages. It just automatically pulls in. And then even if there's links or attachments sent out on the messages, you can still access them on the web. So that's what it looks like. And as far as how you access it, all you need to do is log into your Remind account. So let's say this is my Remind account. Go to your profile, and then account, and then widgets. So we call it a widget. So if you click on that, then we show you options for choosing which of your classes that you want to embed on a site or page. And you can choose whether you want to embed all of your classes or just certain ones. So it lets you preview what the widget would look like. So you get a taste here, what it's going to look like. And then if you're ready to kind of copy and paste the code, there's buttons to do that. And then we also list instructions for you on how to embed it in different sites. So great question about widgets.
So Jordan, when you do that, will only the information you send out be fed, or will the responses say if a parent or somebody respond, will those be seen as well?
Great question. So only what you send out will be shown. If anyone replies to your messages, that will never be shown there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it's a nice one-way kind of broadcast system to have it go on a site. So yeah, looking at some more questions or comments here from Mr. Ritchie. Thank you so much for sharing the story. So he likes to, looks like here's a group selfie with him and his students, and he thinks it's important to share joy, just simple joy during the day. So doing a selfie during a study session, or doing face swaps with his students. Oh my goodness. So here in this other example he sent, is he did some face swaps with like 5 different students and then shared out the pictures to his parents, it looks like. And then other times it looks like he's taking pictures of while students are actually working and sends those pictures out. So totally love that. I think that's really important and powerful, particularly celebrating any achievements or wins or successes and showing the human side of it, you know, the joy and just what's happening. It gives you more visibility and a window into what's going on. Okay, let's see here. I have used the Remind language translator. I sent one out in English, and then I copy that and then make as a new one to translate. Is there a way to make that easier and do it all at once? That's a very great question. So when you're writing out your message on Remind, whether on the mobile app or web, so let's say you just write it out in English first. You should see a little globe button when you're composing the message, and if you just click on that, then you see a menu for different languages to translate the message. So let me share my screen again real quickly to just show you that. Okay, so let's say, I'm not going to send out this announcement, but let's say I have my class and I just want to say good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so I've typed out my message in English, right? So I look for the little globe that says translate. This is on the web, but I think it's a globe on the mobile app. And then here's my menu for languages. So we show you a few options, and then if I click on this little button, there's tons more. So let's try Japanese. So there you go. So hopefully that makes things a little faster and easier for translation. And by the way, to note, this is powered by the Google Translate product. All right. Great question, though. Is there a limit to the number of participants you can have in a class? Nope, there is not. So as far as limits on the product, you can have up to 100 classes, up to 20 co-owners or co-teachers on a given class. And then as far as participants, you can have it as large as you like. Now, I will say, once it gets to about 5,000 or more, it may take a little longer to get everyone their message. But So that's the only thing to consider. But aside from that, though, there's really no limit to the number of participants you can have. Someone asked about accessing the resources folder again. I'm going to share all of this out on this class after our session, so I'll make sure you all have access to that. Let's see. Oh, so another question about requesting materials. So I was also going to send out our event request form. So if you want to request materials, let's say you're doing some kind of event, or you're attending some event, or you're doing a training or some kind of activity, you can fill out our request form. So I will be sending that out via the class after our session. Is there a way to remove all students from a class at the end of the school year, or should we just create new classes each year? Oh, that's a classic question. It's really up to you on how you want to use the product. There's no right or wrong way. On one camp, we've seen people that like to keep everything because they want to keep in touch with their class, let people know, hey, I'm still here, even as you transition other grades, other subjects, other teachers, I'm still here for you. So in that case, you wouldn't want to delete the class. That way they know how to easily contact you. But then let's say you don't want to always have that class front and center. And one of the things we always get asked about is archiving. Stay tuned. It's been on our radar. Stay tuned. But in the meantime, a workaround, you can change the name of your class. And if you add a Z at the beginning of it, then it moves the class to the bottom. So then that way it's kind of below the fold and doesn't disrupt you from looking at the more relevant current classes that you have. So that's if you want to remain in contact with everyone. Now if you don't have a need to do that, then you can remove students from your class. I think right now we don't have the option to delete everyone in bulk, so you could just delete the class. If you are concerned about deleting the class and not getting the same code and name again, I think if you do it pretty quickly, like you do delete and then recreate it again, usually that should work pretty well. So those are a couple options there for you, but it really ultimately depends on whether you want to stay in contact with your class or not. All right, let's see. Great questions. Is there a way to customize a welcome message for users when people join at different times? Oh man, you're preaching to the choir here. Unfortunately, no, not today. We definitely hear this one a ton. Hopefully, I think we'll get to it eventually, just not at the moment. We have other things to launch before back to school. But what you can do is there's the standard kind of welcome message. Then you can always just write your own follow-up message. And then the cool feature we have now is, let's say people join after the year has begun. They kind of join in a little late. You still get access to all of the message history when you join, or at least you as a teacher can decide if you want people to have access to the old messages or not. So if that is turned on, I think it's turned on by default, but if you can go to your class settings and keep that updated. Then even if they join in the middle of the year, they'll still get up to speed with what was discussed or shared before. All right. I just saw the activities link on the left. Anything we should know? Great question. I'm glad you brought that up. So I'm going to share my screen again really quickly. Essentially what this feature is that it helps you organize field trips, fundraisers, events, anything like that. So that's the general gist of it. And the way it works is, so let's say I wanted to do an activity with this PD class. Let's say we have a field trip and I want to organize that all in Remind. So reducing paper, not having to worry about cash or bounce checks, and then just being able to communicate with and coordinate with everyone in one place on Remind. So I would click on the activities button here, and this is history of other events I've done. We've used it here internally at Remind, so we've done a few things there. But to create a new activity, I just click on that button, And this is available on both the web, and it is coming to the mobile app shortly. So here we give you an option of what kind of event or an activity that you're organizing. So I can just say field trip. And then I can say we're going to the San Francisco Zoo. And then, instead of sending this to everyone, I'm just going to send it to one of my demo classes instead. But you can choose which classes to send it to, and you could even choose multiple ones. All right, so again, I could say we're going to the zoo. Then here you can specify the date of your activity, the time, and then if there is a cost associated with this, basically when you send out the activity link, it includes an option to pay with a debit or credit card electronically. Or if your event is free, it doesn't require anything, then you can just leave it empty. But if there is a payment involved, what happens is once people pay with whatever information, then you are able to deposit the funds to a school bank account, and then that way it never touches your own personal account. And I'll show you how that looks in a second. So anyways, that's what happens there if you have to have a cost to it. And then if you want to customize a message when you're inviting people to your event or an activity. So you can customize that there. And then you can always specify whether the people responding to this activity are 13 or older, and then allowing participants to reply to this activity in a group conversation with each other. So that could be helpful if you do want to coordinate or communicate with everyone attending, but I'm going to turn that off for this example here. And then that's it. So this was just sent to a demo class, so I didn't send it to our PD class today here. But this is what it looks like once you've sent it out. So I have replies turned off, but if they were on, I would get them here in this one place. And then this is just a demo here, but let's pretend that people are replying. So when people reply, they see a window to say yes, no, or maybe that they're attending. So I can always get an updated count of that, and then I can always, look up some other information. If there's other people I want to add to the activity, for example, or if I have some other things I want to manage. So here again, we show you a count of, people's responses, and then you can always go back and verify or change the event details. And then there's a button to share your event too. So if I want to post this link on other places, but still kind of collect all the information in one place. That's one other feature there. So that's the gist of activities. It's one of our newest features, and it's already available on the web. It's coming soon on mobile, and if you have any feedback or suggestions, definitely let us know. All right. I'm sorry. I forgot to show about how to add a school bank account to the activity. And then can you turn off the feature that allows people to pay through the app or web? So great questions. For the first one, really quickly, I'm going to share my screen again and just show you what it looks like to add your school bank account. And you can add any account you choose. So let's say you're PTO or PTA president. And there's another bank account that you want to use for all the funds, you can do that too. So I'm going to go back to the web and then back to my account. And then I'm going to click on transactions. So here is where you can add a bank account. So you can choose whether it's a school one or an individual one. If it's an individual, so let's say it's maybe not associated with the school, it's for other purposes, you just enter in the relevant information and we just verify it. If it's a school one, so this is where you can just add another administrator's name and information. So whether it's maybe a principal or a secretary or bookkeeper, whoever that may be, you can just add their name and email and school here, and then we send a little note to them that you can customize. And then so once they accept the invitation, then they're the one that gets to add the school bank account information. And so all you have to do, and let me show you how it looks to transfer funds real quickly here. So I'm going to go back to my old activities. Let's see here. I don't seem to have any current ones that would work. But basically, if I just went back to any old activity, maybe I could try this one, we'll show you a button to just transfer the funds. Okay, so all the transactions would show up here. We have a tab for that. And it would show you, who paid and when and how much, and then we would show you a button to deposit the funds to the account. And so that way, again, it doesn't pass through your own personal account. All right, so we have time for one more question. I'm going to reply to everyone individually, of course, but just to see what else last remaining questions there are for the group here. Okay, lots of great questions, though. Thanks so much for sending them in. Let's see. With the activities link in RSVP, does the RSVP feature only work with online app version? In other words, I notice when sending messages to people who use the SMS feature, the icons are not available. And then can you include attachments with events? Also, really great questions here. So, so the first question, does the RSVP feature work over just the web or the app, or does it work over text as well? And yes, it works over both. So for text, I think we just include like the information of the activity, and then people can reply yes, no, maybe, and then we automatically record that for you. And then the other question about including attachments, so when I showed earlier about the details, you can embed links in there. I don't think we support adding attachments yet, but that's a great suggestion, and I'm definitely going to share that with the team. All right, so I know there were a bunch of other questions that came in. I'm going to go back and reply. I'm also going to share the recording of this session and the resources I mentioned. But thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to tune in and your fantastic questions and just stories and just really being a part of this. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. And thank you so much to our panelists for also taking the time tonight to share their stories and their great questions, too. All right. Well, have a great night, everyone. And for those that are starting school next week, best of luck. Do it Remind, and let us know if we can support you anyway this year. And yeah, we look forward to continuing to sharing more resources and updates with you as we go along. So bye-bye, everyone.